Evening, guys. My name is Gabe, and I'm a grateful, recovered addict and alcoholic. So I'm actually the stand-in. So tonight Chris was supposed to be with us and deliver his testimony. And unfortunately, he's under the weather and he can't join us. So a couple hours ago, it was mentioned to me, and I said, yeah, I'll do it, but I'm not wearing a coat and tie. I'm coming as is because I got a board meeting right after work. And so he said, no problem. I'm going to do everything I can not to break the traditions while I'm up here. But it's been a long week, guys. I know life still happens even in sobriety, okay? Trials and tribulations. But this program that we work allows us to walk through that and be a testimony for God. And it allows other people to see that and let us be the light and be God's light. And that salt that we talk about that preserves everything that's out there that evil forces are trying to destroy. All right? And that's what this whole thing is about. This is the purpose that I was looking for my entire life. Can y'all hear me, by the way? Good? All right. So, well, we'll just start from the beginning. So I was born and raised here in San Angelo in 1983, and born to a great family. My parents are still married. Parents had money. I didn't need for anything, didn't lack anything, and I grew up going on trips, and my dad was not really there because he was working all the time, and I never felt like I could live up to this guy's standards. But just like the rest of us in this room, that I'm sure, I always felt that sense of, man, I really don't belong anywhere, okay? Like, it was this condition that you probably heard some people talk about, that I was too good for everything and not good enough for anything at the exact same time, which is, it's this paradox. It's this hell that we kind of live in that you can't really explain unless you're one of us, and then you can truly understand, right? And that's how I felt my whole life, okay? It's what I did. And, there were events that happened in my life that caused a lot of trauma. I was in a plane crash at the age of 13 with my parents. And it was bad. Both my parents broke their backs. My dad caught on fire in the airplane. I was screaming bloody murder and trying to get my mom out with a broken back, and he comes out engulfed in flames. And I tell that because I went back to get my mom. Anyone would have done this because she had a broken back, and I'm helping this person that I love to death out of this burning airplane, okay? I love my mother to death, guys. I do. I love my family to death. Okay, and I'm in shock because I'm watching people that I love get hurt. This disease will do the exact same thing. It is like a natural disaster. It is the most evil thing that I've seen it do because it destroys this and it corrupts everything that's inside of us. And we become so selfish on the inside that we start taking from everybody and everything, and we manipulate all the circumstances and all the people around us so we can get what we want. And when we do that, we do it at everyone's expense. To fill our pockets, to fill our pipes, to fill our bottles, to do whatever it is. I'm going to get mine, and I'm going to get it at the expense of you. I promise. And that's what I did. After the airplane crash, strangely enough, and they also said, you had PTSD later in my life. And, well, yeah, I'm sure I did. But, guys, the reason why I did the things I did is because I'm an alcoholic. That's why I picked up the bottle, okay? This disease drives us to a position of victimization, and we all of a sudden find ourselves in such a selfish orientation that everything is happening to us. Okay, life is always happening to us, and we're always pointing fingers at other people. We're always pointing fingers at other events, and we're always justifying our actions and our behaviors, right? Until we talk about we finally looked at that the world and its people really dominated us, okay? And we do that as a result of this program, and I'll get to that in a second. But so after the airplane crash, it was the first time I really started drinking, and I started drinking with two of my best friends. And the first thing I realized was that I could outdrink them. I was finally good at something, okay? And they were bigger than me and stronger than me and all these things and better than me at everything. And after shot 12 of vodka, they were done, and Gabe was still going. They're in the bathroom puking, and I'm going strong. I will take their share. And that's how I drank. I started that way, and I never ended. I drink until I black out. I will drink until another force stops me from drinking, and that is usually a floor or if I'm lucky, maybe a bed. A fist that sometimes did it. SWAT teams were notorious. Police officers. These are the things that finally put an end to my drinking. And guys, I couldn't go to sleep. Okay, I couldn't go to bed at night without picking up a drink. That's hell. That's enslavement. That is... I'd have lived that life. I lived in step one for over a decade and a half. When I was 18 years old, I got so drunk at prom that I fell down a flight of stairs in front of a bunch of cops after I cussed out a ceiling and I tried to fight everybody, and I ran out into the street and I stopped traffic and I made a real fool of myself. And it was a scene, so they were like, well, you got to do something with the dude. And it was either go to Carver or I had to go to some sort of alternative schooling, but I wouldn't have gotten to walk the stage with my classmates if I went to Carver for 40 days because it's not counting weekends, right? So again, I had people. I mean, y'all know what I'm talking about. I had people doing my manipulation for me, okay? So I had powerful friends. There is a person in my story that's very important. His name's Tip Hargrove. Love him to death. He's an attorney here in town, and he was kind of my quasi-godfather. And he was always there for me. And guys, this is what our family struggles with because they love us so much, they're going to use their resources to help us, right? They will go to any lengths they can because they love us and they don't want us to suffer and they don't want us to go to jail and they don't want us to have criminal records and they don't want us to not go get the things that they want us to have in life. And eventually this disease beats them just like it beats us, and it beats them even harder because we destroy them in the process of this. So I was get out of treatment after the first 30 days. I was 18, guys. I turned 18 in this treatment facility. I'm in there, and this dude with the one-eyed patch is sitting there in the bodega, as we called it, La Hacienda, screaming that this thing's gonna kill me. And just God would have it, he's not my grand sponsor. And y'all know who I'm talking about. A lot of y'all know who I'm talking about. It's Chris Raymer. And he is, I'm going to tell y'all, guys, as crazy as I thought this cat was that was screaming at me, what he was yelling at me, I knew, and it hit me right here, and I knew it was the truth. I knew at 18 that this thing had me zeroed. I knew then that I couldn't beat this thing. So I left there going, well, that guy said some things that kind of convicted me, that I kind of believe. And I immediately went and found the first marijuana joint and alcoholic beverage that I could find, and I was off to the races. And I was loaded through the rest of high school, and I made the decision because I was, this is what we do, right? I'm trying to I realize I have a problem, so I'm going to build some structure into my life. So I'm going to go to a military college, okay? So, I've got a curfew, and, but there's also, this honor thing, and it's an honorable school, so that's going to feed my ego. And so it's like a twofer, really. And so this is great. So I go to this military college in South Carolina. It's where Tip went, and he was always kind of encouraging me to go there. And, I did what I did best. I got arrested a lot, and I was always in leadership positions. And I always made my grades. And, I do have some outside issues in my Alcoholics Anonymous talks, but they're part of my story. And I was addicted to speed. I mean, I ate Adderall every single night. I would pull all-nighters, and then I would use alcohol to regulate and when I needed to and black out so I could go to sleep. And this is how I lived. And I lived it for a long time. And I remember smoking a cigarette in my company at the end of my senior year. The sun was coming up. I was about to take one of my final exams, and I thought, this is completely unsustainable. One of these days, they're going to come home to roost. I'm going to have to fight this battle. What I didn't realize is I couldn't fight this battle. And I knew that at that time. But I wasn't ready to stop then. So we kept on going. So I graduated with honors. I got arrested. I did horrible things my senior year right before I graduated that should have gotten me kicked out of school. But again, I manipulated. I ran this thing, and I got myself out of trouble. And so I did. and graduated, stayed in Charleston for a year, and I ended up coming back to Texas and went to law school. And in law school, I met a girl that we moved in together. And the day before we graduated, she said, "I need you to pick either me or the bottle." And without hesitation, I said the bottle. And she left me the day we graduated. It should have been one of the greatest days of my life. In fact, it was one of the worst. And so she deuced. She's out. And I decided I'm going to drink myself into oblivion. All my friends went and took the Texas bar exam. Most of them passed it. I'm naked on my floor, drinking myself to death. They're coming over and they're filling me. They're buying me alcohol because they don't want me to go into seizures, and I can't eat anything without alcohol. And it's so bad they eventually drive me back to San Angelo, Texas, and dropped me off with two of my best friends who at the time were banging methamphetamines and heroin. And they decided that this idiot that was drinking as much as he was drinking needed to go to treatment. And so the two guys banging heroin and methamphetamines took me to treatment. And on the way there, we decided, we're not going to, you can't go to treatment sober. That's against the rules. So we got to find the bar that's open at 7 a.m. in the morning and get me loaded. And don't worry, we're not taking you in sober. And so we did. They didn't realize how many shots I was taking, probably 30 plus. And ate a handful of pills, and we got a bottle of Crown, and I'm drinking a bottle of Crown on the way there. And when they got me there, these are two of my oldest best friends. Houston's a day older than me. And they just put me in a wheelchair, and they burned off. Well, thank God the charge nurse realized I wasn't breathing, so they resuscitated me, and I wake up 3 days later, and my mom and sister are in the ICU, and I'm intubated, and they're crying. And my dad comes in a little bit later, and the doctor comes in, and he's like, "Do you know where you're at?" And I was like, "I was on my way to Abilene, I think." And they're like, "Well, he's not brain dead." And anyways, I was in ICU and I had a .556 BAC. And they pretty much advised me that if I drink to that level again, it's going to kill me. So don't do it. I went to Serenity House after I spent about a week in the hospital. And I'm at Serenity House, and I'm in treatment. And this is treatment number 2 or 3, I can't remember. And like usual, I got my mind occupied on things that I shouldn't have had my mind occupied on. That was the other sex. And met a girl while we were in there, and she got out before I did, but Mom was going to come pick me up, but no, I've got a ride. And so she came and picked me up. We come back to San Angelo. We hook up, and we're leaving town. We've already relapsed, and I go to a Celebrate Recovery meeting with my brother-in-law, and I'm drinking in the parking lot. When I leave there, I turned the wrong way going down 87 and got arrested, DWI. Bonded myself out of jail, got arrested the next day. Bonded myself out of jail again, went out to my parents' ranch, got arrested again. And so that was a, 3, that's, hat trick. And so I ended up out here at SATF, which is, if y'all know CRTC, familiar, you dig. So I'm out at SATF doing 9 months, and I do my time out there. I sweet talk everybody because I'm really good at that. I manipulate all of them. I tell them and convince them I'm different, and I've got a law degree, don't y'all know? And I got to go take the bar exam. It's what's happening. And they're like, yeah, go ahead. You don't need aftercare. You're the one exception to the rule. Cha-ching. So off to Austin I go as soon as I get out of there. And as soon as I get there, I decide, well, because I'm different, I don't have to change everything. I don't have to surrender to all this stuff because I did, my 5th step, and I'm going to hold on to some of this stuff, and I'll give you this. But, so here I am making deals with the devil again. And one of the things I didn't get them was, I can go to strip clubs, and that'll be just fine. And I can drink tonic water there. And so I go there, and I'm at the Gentleman's Club, and I met a girl, knew her from Charleston, South Carolina, at another Gentleman's Club. And we recognized each other, and she said, well, why don't we have a small business arrangement? And so we formed a business arrangement. And then that led to her moving in with me. And so I lived about 1,000 feet within a school zone. It was within 1,000 feet. I did have a sponsor, strangely, at this time. He would work for the Attorney General. And she moved a few of her friends in with me, and when my sponsor found out about it, he said, bro, they're going to raid your house for running a brothel. This is not a good thing. So I immediately go home, kick them all out, and she's very upset about this whole ejection. And so she kicks a few holes in my wall and proceeds to punch me, and then leaves and calls the police and tell them that I'm suicidal. So her other friend backdoored it and said I was suicidal and that I had a gun, and I was held up. All my guns were in West Texas. They were all out here. I didn't have any guns there. And said I was holed up in the house with a gun, and as God would have it, in his infinite humor and plan, someone fired some rounds in my neighborhood right at that time. So the Austin SWAT teams show up, 2 of them with their command post and their bomb squad, and evacuate my whole cul-de-sac and all their children and families at midnight. And there was a standoff, and they came over the intercom, and I'm like, well, I'm not coming outside. Like, why are there 3 cop cars lined up over the intercom telling me to come out with my hands in the air? I was on, I had just gotten a DWI, and I was on bond at the time. So I figured she just called and said that I was, violating my bond by drinking and doing cocaine. Well, and that's what I relapsed on. It basically led back to drinking. So I went and grabbed my 2 handles of whiskey and went into my bedroom and passed out. And I woke up hours later to a robot sitting next to my bed telling me to come out with my hands in the air. And there was this smell of explosive in the air. And this pissed off robot blew down my front door and my bedroom door with C4. And is now telling me to come out with my hands in the air. This is when, guys, you comply. Like, all right, I'm coming out. And so I'm trying to follow R2-D2 outside, and I pass out on the couch trying to get out there, and that's when they hit me both sides, front door, back door with SWAT teams, and break a few ribs because, they're going to break a few ribs and they call in the SWAT team, and drag me outside and tear my feet up and do all that stuff. And I wake back up in ER with my parents, and, they're happy. They're just thrilled that their son's back in the emergency room with the SWAT team. And anyways, I made a deal with the negotiators because they were like, well, we didn't really break any laws, but you were drinking on bond, so we're going to kind of leave that out. We might have used excessive force. Let's just let bygones be bygones, which I'm cool with because I need to go to the liquor store. And, soon. And if y'all send me to jail, they're going to no bond me because I just violated bond. So, all right, this sounds like a good deal to me, right? Oh, by the way, you got to go to the funny farm for the weekend to make sure you're not suicidal. All right, fine. So go there, get discharged, and go back to drinking, guys. And I was persona non grata in that neighborhood, as you can imagine. So I moved to East Austin, and I moved out there. And I'm working for the state senate this time. I'm working for a state senator. I'm running the Senate Committee on State Affairs. And I decided while I'm doing that, I'm going to try some controlled crack smoking. And so I don't have a car because I done wrecked it and got a DWI for that. And so I'm loaded running Senate Committee on State Affairs, which is the second most important committee behind the Finance Committee in Texas government. And guys, this was so unsustainable. And my judge was a friend of the senator's, and she was in the program. She's one of us, and she's founded several of the programs that are in Austin, Texas. And she became like my surrogate mother, and she's begging me, please, they gave me chance after chance after chance. I blew numbers at probation, and I went into her courtroom after I walked out of probation a week later. There's a warrant for my arrest. He puts me in the jury box. The probation officer's like, yeah, I think we should give Mr. Hughes another chance, but I think we should breathalyze him because he smells like alcohol. Blew numbers in her courtroom, and they still let me walk out and go talk to my boss. And she wouldn't take me away from my boss during the middle of session, and they let me make it. Manipulated my way out of that situation again, and I was walking back to the Capitol thinking, if I can just make it to May, I'll put myself in treatment. I will. And if I can get to the end of session, and I knew it walking down that road, there was no way I was going to make it. My life was falling apart. I was miserable, and I had no answers. None. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to, I can't go put myself in treatment right now, because I've got things I've got to go do, right? Not to mention I might be dead in the next 24 hours or whatever it is. I won't make this commitment to go that extra mile to get to that surrender that someone talked about when they picked up a chip earlier, to burn the ships, because I've got things to do. I've got an agenda that has to be met. Gabe Hughes is important, and my family's suffering the whole time. My work is suffering the whole time because I won't get honest with myself and anyone else. Anyways, I lost that job about a week later because I couldn't make it to work on time, sober. And she threw me in jail. Actually, my drug dealer who moved into my house sat on top of me until the police got there. His name was Ice. He was bigger than me. I don't think that's his God-given name. And anyway, so they threw me in jail. Spent 3 months in Travis County Correctional Complex and just sat my time out. Got out, and that's when I moved back to San Angelo, Texas, and I met this group. and I was living underneath a bridge for a little bit. Some friends of mine from college found out where I was at. My parents came and got me. I came here. Brian Benson, who's not here tonight, he's my boss. He was my first sponsor, and my family asked him to help me, and he did. He reached out to me and he helped me, guys. And I was coming to the end of myself. I was having DTs. I thought the Russians were after me, and they sent a crack unit to kill me because I said bad things about Putin on Facebook. And but I did. I was seeing like objects and things, and I thought I was hearing voices all night long. Ended up driving to Austin. Had a spiritual experience in Austin, and I opened the Bible for the first time in my life, and I read the story of the prodigal son. And my dad always called me the prodigal son, and I picked this book back up while I was there, and I started reading it again. And by the time I had this out-of-body experience, by the time I came to the bar across the street was closed, I would stop having these sensations where I'd go in and out of these DTs. And I drove back and redid my fist up with Brian, and I got some relief from this thing. I did. I really did. I was working the deal for a little bit. But see, we talk about it in the fist up, that... there's some requisites to this deal, right? And it's honesty, humility, fearlessness. Well, I was still lacking a little bit in the humility part and honesty part. So I was at this time, I was prescribed Vyvanse, because Vyvanse is less abusive, they say, than Adderall is. Boy, did I trick them. And so I found a way to abuse that just as well as I did with Adderall. And so I didn't want to tell my sponsor about that, because he's on a need-to-know basis, and he doesn't need to know my medical conditions, right? So I'm going to leave that little tidbit of information back from him, and I'm going to just kind of also, I met a girl, and she was everything I dreamed of, and the enemy put her right in my path, and she's a good person, but I had no business being in a relationship at that time in my life. None. Zero. And so I met her and immediately became infatuated with her. So now I'm lying to my sponsor. I was from the beginning. So I've got this dishonesty, right? And it's corrupting in here. It's growing. And it's just kind of decaying me a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then I met somebody else that decided that I was going to put them in the place where God's supposed to go. And I stopped maintaining my spiritual relationship with it. I stopped developing it. I stopped seeking this. I stopped reading the other books I was reading that I read on a regular basis. And I started making everything about that person. And I had this fear, guys. So when I was sitting there and he told me when I was 18 years old that I was, alcoholic and this thing might kill me one day if I don't surrender and do these things, it planted the seed of fear in me, because I darn well knew that he was telling the truth. And every day of my life after that, it just corroded me a little bit more. Now I've got this dishonesty sitting on top of it, and now I've got this other person that I'm supposed to use to heal all these things. And she's a human being. Okay, so that's not fair to the other person, number one. Okay, number two, she can't fix me. I can't fix you. That's God's job. But I put this person in the place where God's supposed to go, and C.S. Lewis puts it, I've never heard it put better. Even the best of us die. We will always let each other down. Okay? That's God's job to go right here. Everything else follows suit. And I stopped doing this. And I started doing that. I'm going to tell you where that landed me. So, 9 months sober. I was abusing prescription drugs, so we'll use that term loosely. I got into a fight with her, and this time, guys, they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder. I'm not your MD, so that's between you and your doctor, but I'm going to tell you that this disease looks a whole lot like bipolar disorder and major depressive disorder, and you exhibit the same symptoms, because guess what? We're insane when we're in our addiction, and I was absolutely, positively insane when I was in my addiction. So I lost my mood stabilizers and my antidepressants. Magically didn't lose my speed. That was in my pocket. But so I'm like driving back from her ranch to my ranch trying to find this stuff, and which is like an hour and a half drive. And when I got back to her place, she wouldn't give me any. She wouldn't show me the time of day. She was texting, and she my God stopped working. This thing was breaking. I was forsaken. So you know what I did? I went back to that thing that cured all that, at least temporarily. I waltzed my butt inside and grabbed a bottle of whiskey and started drinking it. And I was drunk in no time, blacked out. And she kicked me out of the house, righteously so. And I drove back to my parents' ranch, and my mom was so upset I got enough alcohol to kill myself. And Jerry, my current sponsor, and Brian drove out there to try to get me to go to sober living. And they didn't recognize me. I don't remember seeing them. And they told my mom not to come out there. I was out of my mind. And my mom, look, I've drugged these people through hell, okay? I made a deal with her if I ever drank again, I'd go to sober living. And she was going to make sure I honored that deal. And so she came out there and she met Tip. They didn't want to call the police because remember, our family loves us. And so, they don't want us to go to jail. So they come out there, those two, and Tip has done this before with me, okay? And so they come out and there's a fight inside. They're trying to get me to leave. And after we fight inside, they go out to their cars and I grab a hot AR-15 and walk outside, and I'm standing in the parking garage, just concrete, and they turn around, they start walking back at me, and I say, get off my effing property, and they say, this isn't your effing property. And I start discharging this firearm multiple times, and the only thing I vaguely remember is Tip Hargrove screaming, do you realize what you've done? And I've got the barrel of the gun pointed at his head, and I've shot him in the foot, and I've shot my mom through the femoral artery, and she's bleeding out on the ground. My mother, who I love to death, is dying. And I throw my AR-15 into the field and I beg Tip, can you please save my mom's life? Please. And he takes off his tie and he puts a tourniquet around her leg and he says, I don't know. And he puts her in the truck and they drive off, and I'm convinced I've killed my mother. So I grab a 12-gauge shotgun and I stand in my house and I wait till the cavalry arrives, and I'm out there waving a shotgun at the police trying to get them to kill me. Begging them to kill me. And they won't do it. I go inside, they go get a tank from Abilene, Texas, and they come in and they're throwing in tear gas, and I'm sitting there there's a Bible sitting next to me and a shotgun on my left side, and I grab the shotgun and I'm trying to figure out how to do this because I can't breathe. It's either with my toe or with my thumb, and I don't want to mess this up. And I had a moment with God, and I got on my knees and I prayed, and I grabbed that Bible and I walked outside. And some of my very best friends today were the SWAT team members that took me into custody. And I spent the next 4.5 years in the Texas Penitentiary, or in Tom Green County Jail. And during that time, that girl stayed in a relationship with me. And I want y'all to hear this because I'm still holding on to her, and I'm in a scary, dangerous place that I've never been before, and she is my rock. If you've been down, you have seen those idiots that are screaming into the telephone, and they're holding on with dear life, and they're begging you not to leave. That was this idiot. I was that dude. And I'm screaming, and I'm manipulating, and I'm trying to control. And I hang up that phone a year and a half into this thing, and there's two cats sitting behind me that are in this program. They said, why don't you come sit down because you need some freedom, and you ain't got none. They said, you're going to get a letter in the mail, and it's going to say, don't ever contact me again, and you're never, ever going to contact that person again. And to this day, I haven't contacted that person. She is a good person, and I wish her the absolute best, and I have yet to contact that person because that was the instructions that I was given, and that was the place where I was absolutely broken because my God had just walked out of my life. The God that I unrighteously put there, unfairly put there, to her and everybody else, me and God. And she walked out, and my heart was destroyed. And I finally came to this place, guys, and I can't even really adequately put it into words. It is a demoralization that we talk about in this book, and it is so painful, and it is so lonely, and it is so inconceivable until you get to this place that it is holy ground for me. And it's a spiritual place where you almost have to take your shoes off to talk about, understand it. And I know y'all have been there in this room. And that is the most beautiful place in the world. That is the place in the world where I finally was able to come to the end of myself and surrender. To give up and say, all those things I thought, felt, and believed that I carried with me into this place, I can finally give to God. Because I absolutely hated who I'd become. Have any of y'all seen Lord of the Rings? Yeah? Y'all know Smeagol? That's who I became. That's what I was. I was that ugly on the inside and on the outside. And I couldn't look myself in the mirror without hating myself. There was no love left. So I did what those cats told me, and I started working these steps. That was my step one. It was where I truly finally came to the end of myself. It was where I could see the truth for the truth and the false for the false. And I could finally learn to rely on God and rely on Him and His love alone. I remember sitting in church, and there was some volunteers that came in, and I was just bawling. Just broken and sad and pathetic. And these guys just came up to me, and they loved me. They loved me. And I'm going to rewind a little bit too, because there's someone in this room several people in this room. Chris Dunbar was one of them, and I know he can't be with us tonight. But guys, y'all can imagine when you do something like that, most of your prestigious friends, they tend to vanish pretty quickly. And they did. They poofed. The people that didn't poof on me were the people in this room. There's a man in this room that's an attorney that came and visited me the next day after that. He came with another gentleman that struggles with this disease, and they came in there and they just said, "We're here to tell you we love you. We're here to show you that we support you when you're not alone." And guys, that saved my life. That's James. And this is what we do for each other. This is what saves people's lives, because guys, I was sitting in a holding cell wondering whether what I thought had just happened. Going crazy because I don't have meds that I just had been, I've been fueling into myself. And someone showed up when I'm trying to think about how to get a bed sheet to hang myself with. And they showed up and they said that they loved me. And that let me carry on for just a little bit longer. Okay, so fast forward a little bit farther. So I'm in the penitentiary, guys, and I just started doing these things. And my sponsor currently wrote me a letter, and he said, when you have fear, because there's a lot of fear, okay? Y'all have fear. We all have fear. What is the opposite of fear? Faith. The opposite of fear is faith. What am I constantly trying to do in my addiction? So let's walk back this a little bit. So I've done step one, right? I'm at the point to where I've tried everything. The state of Texas has tried everything, and they've all failed. I'm willing to believe that maybe a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. Okay? And then I'm at step three, and we're talking about step three, and then I get to see what the problem is. And the problem this whole time was I've got so much fear that it manifests itself in this selfishness that I have. And it exudes all over the place. It just spills out everywhere. And when that happens, we good? All right. When that happens, let me back up a little bit. When I was sitting this was Tom Green County, a friend of mine told me, Gabe, and I wasn't quite there yet because I was still dependent on the girl and all this other stuff. But he said, Gabe, desperation is a gift. And next to grace, it's the greatest gift you will ever get. And that desperation was the most important thing I ever received, other than grace. And with that desperation, all kinds of miracles can happen. And those guys, when I was crying in church, they came and they said, we're just here to help. And in that moment, I realized a few things. All those biases that I had, all those judgments that I had, all those things that I called you guys in this room or people that were different than us or people that didn't believe the same way I did, all of that crap was man-made. Every single bit of it. And these cats are sitting here and they're just sharing their love with me. That's it. That's all they're doing. They're spending time with me, and they didn't ask me who I voted for. They didn't ask me where I came from. They didn't ask me what I believed in. They just knew that I was broken. And they loved me. And I said, I want to be that. That's all I want right now in this broken place in my life is I want to be that spiritual spring that has given me life right now, because that was the only thing that was keeping me alive. That, the letters that were coming from people in this room. And when I got out of prison, I made my first parole, and I came home. And guys, coming home's tough. If y'all been to prison, coming home's probably harder than going in, if you ask me. And especially coming back to a small city like San Angelo, especially, you got your past, and guys, our egos still get out of control all the time. And I'm still convinced that everyone's so concerned about me returning. No one cared. I mean, I just go do my own deal, but I'm like so convinced that every white Honda that I saw was this girl and everything else. And there's a lot of white Hondas in the world, by the way. And so, what these guys taught me was when we're working these steps. So, we talked about 3. I'm trying to arrange the show. The opposite of fear is faith. And when I'm in this fear, right, I'm constantly trying to control everything. And when I'm trying to control everything, the problem with that is it doesn't work out the way I want it to. And so then the play falls apart, and then I get resentful, and then I get burned up, and then I go and I think everyone's against me. We talk about it, fancied or real, right? And all these things that happened in my life, probably about a quarter of them that I thought happened to me were probably real. The rest I made up in my head. And that's what this insanity does. So I did my 5th step again when I got home. And, 6 and 7, I went and gave all this stuff to God when I was in the penitentiary. I did it again with my sponsor when I got home. 8 and 9, guys, when we're making amends, make sure you do this with your sponsor. Take your list to him and go through it with him, because there's different ways to do this. Like, there's no reason for me to reach out to this girl. She was married at that time. Now, here's the way I made my amends to her. They said, and guys, resentment takes a lot of weird forms. Like, depression's one of them. I was absolutely eat up inside, and I was dying on the inside, and that lasted forever. They said, well, why don't you go and you pray blessings in this person's life over and over and over again. Pray that a good man come into her life. Pray that she's happy. Pray that she is showered with blessings. And guys, I did that, and I didn't mean it the first 1,000 times. I did it because I wanted to be that man, right? But I did it. I did what these people told me to do. And that's when you hear us talking about taking the actions, that's what we mean. Okay? You may not believe it. You may not want to do it. But we're insane in that condition, and people that are helping us are not insane in that condition. And so we just start to listen, and we just start to do what these people are telling us, because they have something that I desperately want that I don't have. And so I did. I got on my knees and I prayed for this person over and over and over again, until one day I ran over to these guys and I'm like, I don't hate this girl anymore. And they're like, good, you can stop praying that prayer. And that, I didn't even realize the significance of that until a little bit later. When I forgave, guys, forgiveness is not something I do. It says in the 4th step that I can't get rid of my resentments any more than I can quit drinking. I don't just go around forgiving people. That's not who Gabe Hughes is. I get resentments and I carry them with me, and I promise you I will let you know about them if I don't wear this program. Forgiveness is a result of the actions that I take in this program. And getting on my knees and praying this and putting God in the middle of it, putting prayer and meditation and action in the middle of this thing, this was my biggest stumbling block. And I'm praying for this person, and one day I forgave her. I wanted all those things. I wanted a good man in her life. I realized I was not him. I realized I was insane. And when I realized that, they said, well, good, now you know what love is. That was the first time I truly, truly understood what love in my life was, because I was able to love someone enough to let them go. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me getting something and manipulating and holding on to something. Loving that person meant I'm not the guy that's sane and is the good guy to be in her life. Another guy should be, because she deserves that. And I'm going to let that person go. And I was finally able to do that. And I ran into her later on. I didn't say anything to her. I saw her in a bar. I was picking up food at the grill, and they were sitting at the bar. And I saw them, and it was one of the greatest days of my life, which wouldn't seem like much, but I was happy. I was free from that bondage, from that yoke. And I walked out with my food and went home and ate it, and I was that was one of the greatest times of my life. Because I remembered how I felt with that. So guys, I keep doing this thing, and I tell people all the time, 10, 11, and 12, I don't take my inventory great all the time. It's been a rough week, okay? Thank God we got step 11. Because when I don't take my inventory all the time, I get to review my day, right? And, I get on my knees in the morning, too, and ask God for right direction and all these things and do all this stuff. But sometimes I'll go to bed and I'm feeling some type of way. And then if I do my inventory and I realize, well, I didn't exactly hit it off with the CFO again today. Maybe I should probably stop saying that out loud on recordings. But, I get to look back at that and say, this is where I went wrong. This is what's eating me up today. And I can go tomorrow and correct that. I can call my sponsor and get some advice. I can call my accountability partners, my friends, and get some advice. Or I can just man up and know that I was wrong and my ego's in the middle of this thing and my pride's all torn up in this thing and just remove myself from the power struggle after I make my apology and then find a way to be of service to these people. Because it says in here, and we're talking about those that wrong us are perhaps spiritually sick as well. They, like ourselves, are sick. How would I treat a sick friend? Patience, tolerance, right? When I start practicing these principles, that's what the difference between spiritual principles and the world is. We keep the wheels on the bus because we become the hands and feet of God. When we are practicing these things, we put other people first and we put God's principles first. We put God's agendas first and not our own. And that lets us have all good things work for us, okay? That God can take anything that went wrong in our lives that we made crooked and make them straight again, provided we give it to Him. Anything. I've sat across some people in law libraries who have had their children taken away by CPS. I've had guys whose rights were terminated by the state of Texas have a piece of paper that said, you will no longer ever see your children again. Ever. Period. Right? Well, why don't you go do this? I can't help you legally, but why don't you go do this and see what God has to say about all that? God has the last say in all of these things. He can redeem anything He wants to redeem, and I've seen it. I've seen it on more than one dozen, I don't know how many times, but a whole lot. And it's a miracle to watch God do what man said can't be done. I love it when they say they can't do that. Okay, well, let's see what God has to say about all of that nonsense. Because God's going to have the final say in all of this. They said I wouldn't make my first parole, and I made my first parole. Not because of something I just followed directions and I started doing this and I help people. And my sponsor wrote me a letter that said, "You've got fear. I get it. What does it say in the book in the fourth step about fear? We are to play the role that we are assigned. And Gabe, you're a prisoner right now. That's the role you're to play. That's the role that you're assigned. Now help people in the penitentiary." And that's what I did. And all of a sudden, locked doors all around me started opening up. I could go to any parts of the units I wanted to. I could go anywhere on that place I wanted to. Guards didn't stop me. Offenders didn't stop me. In a strange way, that was one of the greatest times of my life. It was. That was the most peace I ever had, was behind barbed wire and concrete, living out of a box this big. Connected to God, walking with Him fully. You come back out here and all the material things come back, right? You get all the stuff. You get the relationships. Your family's back and they've been damaged severely. And we've got to figure out how to make those amends, right? These are living amends, okay? My sister didn't forgive me for a year and a half until I got out of the penitentiary. She didn't, because I nearly killed her mother. And I get it. I couldn't do anything about that, but commit that to God. And I did. And my sister wrote me an incredible letter, and I have time, I'll read it. But I just kept doing these things. And guys, if you haven't done step 12, which is the most important step if you ask me, step 1, you'll never get there if you don't completely surrender. Okay, do all the steps first before you get to step 12. Let's say that. But step 12, guys, too many guys I know get to step 11 and then they just stop. And y'all are missing the magic, because I learned, my sponsor says this all the time, I learned this much working the steps and this much helping other people. When you go take somebody through the steps, the first time, the 150th time, the 5,000th time, you are going to learn something new every single time, and you're going to walk out of that room going, I know for a fact I was right where God wanted me to be. And that's that peace I was talking about I had in the penitentiary. That peace that I'm exactly where God has me to be, and I'm right where He wants me to be, doing His work, and His power is flowing through me. And I'm getting to watch some dude's life that I didn't ask who he voted for, that I don't care where he came from. All I know is his life is broken. And God has asked me to love this person as a child of God. And that's what God has called us to do. That is how we fight back spiritually, is through love and showing people that are broken. This is what led me to salvation. This is what saved my life. My family came back into my life. Every relationship in my life was restored except the one that I was praying for so hard in the beginning, and that was that girl. And today I know why. But the ones that were really important, my parents, my sister, my grandmother, my friends, well, my true friends, they came back, and I started to realize the importance of this room and these rooms. This is my family. This is my spiritual family. I'm in an incredible Bible study with the guy that's on this shirt right now. This is one of the SWAT team members that arrested me. And when I got out of prison, he just approached me and said, "Why don't you come join our spiritual family?" Just like these guys did in this room. They rolled out the red carpet for me, just like this group did the day I got out of prison. And they said, "Brian said, I'm going to give you a job." This is how we plug back into the community, is we help those people that are walking behind us. And if we're not there to do that, everything falls apart. This is where we learn not to judge. This is where we learn to help those to love our neighbor, to love our brothers and our sisters and not judge them. Because I shot my mom with a machine gun. I'm not going to judge you. I did in the past. That allows me to qualify myself with another alcoholic or drug addict and sit down with them and say, "Hey man, let's work these steps. I can show you the way out of this darkness. God can use me to help you if you're willing to take certain steps. And if you do this, I promise you, not 90% of the time, not 95% of the time, 100% of the time, miracles are going to show up in your life. Incredible things are going to happen with you. Lives are going to be restored. You will find, we talk about it in this book, In a Vision for You. The greatest days of your lives are ahead. Your imagination will be fired. Guys, I woke up this week, and this person that's on my shirt, it means a lot to me. He's a very good friend, and he got attacked. And I woke up this morning, and I had that hate in my heart that I had 10 years ago for myself. But because of this program, I get to realize those people that attacked him, they have those same issues. They are spiritually sick, and I can love them, and I don't hate them for that. I hate the powers and the principalities. I hate the addiction. I hate those things that kill people. But I have a tool today to fight back against that. And if I want to shut this up and go take some action, I can actually make a difference. Or I can sit here and complain about the news. I can sit here and complain about the world events. I can sit here and complain about all these things that are wrong. Or I can pick up my mat and walk. I can go be that glue in my family. I can go be that one lifeline to some guy whose life is on fire and not ask him and have him qualify him to me, but me to him. I can be that light. I can be that salt. I can be a purpose and use to somebody again. And that is what this is all about. That is what, I can't do this on my own, guys. By the grace of God, they licensed me to be an attorney. I didn't do that, okay? People in this room wrote letters on my behalf. This guy wrote letters on my behalf. My family wrote letters on my behalf, and they described what we were doing. Yes, I was doing it too. Helping other people, loving other people, paving the way, being the light for other people. And I'm telling you, this world is craving it. And they're craving it so much, the Supreme Court of the state of Texas said, give this man a license because we need examples so people can see that and they can strive for something. So we can go back there and help those people and lift them back up and carry them over and stand in the gap and fade the heat. That is what we are called to do. That is our mission. And guys, it is so much greater than just not drinking. That is just a consequence of all of this stuff. You will never have to drink or drug again and never crave it again, provided you're doing these things. And you get the added benefit of all these. I can go anywhere I want to. I can go to bars if I have a good reason to be there. I can go anywhere I want to, and even more importantly, I can go places that the normies can't. I can go into jails and prisons and institutions because I'm carrying a message of God and a message of hope, and so can you. You get to go places that other people can't. That is the calling of this program. That is the purpose that we have. Our purpose, and it says it on top of page 77, is to be a maximum service to God and the people about us. I'm going to read this letter and I'm going to shut up. This is... I could not restore. I can make my amends, but it's my actions that matter. And when I made my amends to my sister, I wrote her a letter, and I knew she was still very upset with me. So I just kept doing this and listening to what these people were telling me. And a year and a half after I got out of the penitentiary, I got this. Dear Gabe, over a year ago, you wrote to me asking me for forgiveness. You finally put into words what I'd longed to hear, and I was so grateful. And yet, even though my gratefulness, I didn't respond. I did forgive you, and I do forgive you, but at the time, it was still so much more of a process for me. I was in the process of forgiving you, even though I woke daily declaring forgiveness and blessings. I don't know why it has taken me so long to respond. Part of it sheer laziness, as the art of letter writing seems to have been lost. Part of it fear and stirred up feelings I was afraid were still there. Anger, doubt, and hurt, which would tell me I hadn't forgiven. And part of it disobedience to God for true unknowns. Either way, I sit here this morning with no stirred up feelings other than love. I'm so grateful you are back. It's been so long, much longer than that physical prison sentence, and I do forgive. And I ask you to please forgive me for taking so long, for being so slow, for being so unforgiving and unloving, for not being there for you. Jesus showed me a side of myself that I didn't care for, and I struggled madly with it. But today I walked free. I love you. I'm proud of you. I forgive you. I forgive myself. I desire for us to start anew as brother and sister, to get to know each other, to be a support for each other, to be a listening ear to each other. You are my only brother, and I'm so glad you are mine. I love you, Kristen. It set her free from those resentments that we caused to other people. It'll set you free, and it'll set those people free too if you go and you work this program and take these steps and take the actions that your sponsor's telling you to. It relieved her from a burden she couldn't carry anymore because I just went and did what people told me in this room to go do. And I started loving other people. And I stopped making it about myself, and I picked up my mat and walked. And my sister, who's my best friend, came back into my life. And my nephews and nieces did too. I can't do that, guys. I had to have God's help do that. And that's all I got. Thanks.